bakers have been arrested in Venezuela after what their president is calling the bread war. Now, President Maduro is trying to deal with some of the shortages they're having and deal with some of the long lines for bread, and he is targeting bakers. Now, the National Superintendent for the Defense of Socioeconomic Rights said it had charged 4 people and temporarily seized 2 bakeries as the socialist administration accused bakers of being part of a broad economic war aimed at destabilizing the country. So I just want you guys to understand this real quick. They are saying that some of these bakers, people who make bread, are trying to destabilize the country, okay? The government said that the bakers had been selling underweight bread and were using price-regulated flour to illegally make specialty items like sweet rolls and croissants. Now, they're only allowed to make French bread and white loaves. This is a socialist economy. Now, President Nicolas Maduro launched Plan 700. It's called 700 because they're sending inspectors and soldiers to 700 bakeries against what he called this bread war, ordering officials to do spot checks of bakeries nationwide. Now, just to give you guys some background of what is going on in Venezuela, they have been in a deep, deep economic recession for the past 3 years. Now, Venezuela is a huge exporter of oil. It accounts for 95% of their revenue, but they import everything else. Now, when oil prices went down in 2014, they saw a huge shrinking of the economy. Now the pricing and accessibility of goods has just skyrocketed in the country. It's impossible to get flour, basic goods like toilet paper and things of that nature. And so they have these very, very strict rules about how much flour and wheat you can use in different baked goods, what kind of baked goods you're allowed to make and things like that. And so they're saying basically that these bakers are trying to capitalize on the inflation that is going on in the country and sell these goods like either on the black market or mark them up differently and things like that to destabilize the economy.
They're cutting it. They're like drug dealers cutting their heroin with other shit. It's tough. I mean, I read this story and I'm like, oh, another bullshit reason for seizing industries in Venezuela. Like that happens every day. It sucks. It sucks. I wouldn't want to live there because of how bad the economy is, because they have one industry and it just took a giant hit because prices went down.
How bad does your government have to be if you have to use bread as a scapegoat?
No, it's not that. It's true. I mean, what are they going to eat? Oil?
We need to understand the Venezuelan economy going back to Hugo Chavez, right? I did numerous research in college over this. The American government has had a major influence over Venezuelan politics for years.
Of course.
Involving overthrowing of governments and really wanting to be involved and leave their footprint on the Venezuelan
all of South
economy.
America.
And then specifically, it's not just Venezuela. And then Obama administration imposed numerous sanctions as well, because basically he deemed Venezuela an unusual and extraordinary threat to security and foreign policy, basically a reason so that they could go in and impose further sanctions. So this economy has been in free fall. It's been in crisis. You mentioned it there. In 2015, the oil prices were cut in half. So in order to try and make up for that, what they started to do was print money. And by printing money, what that does is it drives up inflation. So such things as groceries were increased by like 25% higher than what you usually pay. So no one in that infrastructure could handle that driving up economy. So they started to basically struggle and queue up overnight to just get things like rice and cooking oil. So the place itself is of course in turmoil, and people will try to take advantage of that to try and make some ends meet so that they can try and push forward to supply for their family.
I just think everything that you said is totally accurate. I mean, they have 1,600% inflation and things like that. There's a huge issue. There's a huge shortage for all these basic goods. But the underlying problem is the government. It's not the bakers. That's the real problem. It's like they're basically using it as a scapegoat and saying there's a bread war and that's why you're suffering. And that's not why you're suffering. It's because the government has totally fucked you over by having sort of all this inflation and not having a better and more stable economy by trying to make more goods or import differently and whatever it may be, and having, you know what I mean? Like that's the real issue.
I have no idea what the young Turk audience is going to say about this story that says socialism doesn't work. because the truth is, what happens is at a certain point when you have runaway socialism, and especially in a South American country with the economic makeup that they have in Venezuela, is you eventually that socialist ends up being a strongman, and you have what you had in Cuba, especially. I mean, go look at some of the photos that are amazing, where both Castro and Chavez are both in red when Castro had his problem. But like, I don't know. That's why I say we should temper some socialist instincts with some free market capitalism and try to make sure that there are checks and balances against runaway political ethoses. That makes me a moderate, so I don't know where the fuck everyone's gonna land on this story.
It's mismanagement of public finances because of relying on one of your most wealthiest sources of income with your oil, and as soon as that cuts, you find it hard to try and justify. But I can't just sit and simply state that it was mismanagement of the Venezuelan government. There is involvement from exterior power, whether it's got an alternative political idea to maybe overthrow a different political party that maybe did not align with some of the
but
it's the United States
in South America, where the U.S. is just kind of like, oh, Chile, here's a dictator.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I just become a little bit not as critical as I would be on maybe if it was the UK government that was doing the same thing, or the US government. I just think that these specific countries that have been meddled in, that's why it's so ironic when everyone cries, oh, Russia's meddling in our election. The US is meddled in, I'm not justifying that, but the US has meddled in more elections than one could count on fingers and thumbs. So I'm just saying that there's other reasons as to justify why people are looking to try and go to some drastic measures in order to try and make their way.
Yeah. Not arguing that. I'm just saying let's not arrest people who are trying to make bread.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Podcast The Young Turks anytime you want. TYTnetwork.com/join.
I think it's weird.
No, it's not weird. In fact, you'll think,
I'm like a smart person.
Do it now. TYTnetwork.com/join.